Have you ever thought about writing down your life story, but something got in the way, whether or not it was not enough time, or you were having trouble getting inspired, or you were telling yourself the kinds of things that many of us tell ourselves, like, well, I'm not a good enough writer, my life's not that interesting, or any of those types of things that keep us from wanting to do it? Well, in today's episode of the Journey to Legacy show, I am going to share with you some of the research and reasons behind the benefits of life story writing. And maybe when you hear these benefits, it might change your mind. So also, if you have a parent or a grandparent, someone in your life that you're hoping they'll record their life stories, this episode may be useful for you to share with them. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Journey to Legacy show, where you'll hear practical tips and real life stories to help you feel good about the life you've lived, the years ahead, and the legacy you have to leave behind. I'm your host, Joanna Klein. I'm an international speaker, intuitive coach, counselor, and the facilitator and creator of Journey to Legacy, an online life story writing course for women in their third act. So today's episode is called The Benefits of Life Story Writing. And there are actual research studies that shows that there are incredible benefits to doing life story writing. So if you've felt like you've wanted to do it, or you know someone who you're hoping will do it, this episode is going to go into some of the ways that it can be helpful to you. So first off, it increases your self-esteem. Now, a 2018 study was done by 3 psychology professors at 3 different universities, and 421 participants were included in this study altogether. So they were dispersed, I guess, among the 3 different universities. And they were given a task to either write 4 important stories about their life, or write about 4 famous Americans. And what the study showed is that those who wrote the stories about themselves reported feeling better and a sense of higher self-worth. Now, that totally coincides with my experience in my Journey to Legacy online writing program, that women in my program will say that they feel better. They'll say that they have greater self-worth as a result of going through the process and writing down their story. Now, it makes so much sense because we are reflecting back on our life, and so often we're carrying these stories in our head and not really taking the time to sit and look at them and really notice what it is we accomplished, what it is we were able to work through, some of the biggest challenges that we've experienced. When we actually write it down, we have those moments of appreciation for all that we went through and the fact that we made it through that experience to begin with. So just taking the time, putting it down on paper or typing it brings a level of clarity to our experiences that doesn't occur when we're just reliving them in our heads or thinking about them just mentally, and not actually putting it down and seeing it on paper, seeing it spelled out. So another study that also shows that there was that it brings a sense of greater self-esteem, self-worth, was one that was done in 2015, or at least reported in a October 2015 issue of Journal of Traumatic Stress. And it showed that a study was done with almost 1,300 veterans, both men and women. And it reported that those who were able to sit down and write what they call expressive, we'll call it therapeutic journaling, where it's a process of writing down our thoughts and feelings about our personal experiences. So those veterans who wrote down about their life experiences, about their personal experiences, some of their traumatic experiences, showed a much less physical distress, signs of symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, physical complaints, less stress, than those who either didn't do any writing or those who wrote just the facts about what happened versus writing about their thoughts and feelings about what happened. So those who wrote about their thoughts and feelings showed much less signs of distress, post-traumatic stress disorder, and well as physical symptoms. So those are just two studies that shows that sense of well-being can be improved when we write down our stories. Now, another benefit of life story writing is that it improves your memory. When you start writing down your stories, so many people will say to me, well, my memory is really vague. I don't think I can remember much. I mean, there's gaps in my life that don't, I can't even remember. And I certainly have that situation, have had that situation myself. But here's what happens. Once you start writing down your story, things start coming back to you. And it's amazing how that happens, because as you start writing down certain events, then you'll notice maybe the next day you start having another memory about, oh yeah, now I already just started thinking about that this happened. Or another thing might happen is as you're writing down an event, you might find yourself talking about it to another family member, and they might fill in some gaps that you have about that particular situation. So just the process of committing to doing it and writing it down starts bringing back memories, whether it's in discussion with someone else or just through your own experience. And typically it's through your own experience. And when we start writing down our stories, other things, we start getting interested in thinking about other things. Like we might bring out old pictures, or we might play music from that time period when we were younger, when we were in our teens or in our 20s or certain times during our life. And it will bring up certain memories, things that we haven't remembered for a while. And this is really good for our brain to start thinking about things that it hasn't thought about in a while. It kind of lights up whatever it is in our brain and it starts perking things up. So over and over again, I've heard people in my Journey to Legacy program say, my memory is starting to return. And that's a really exciting process. Another benefit of life story writing is that it can ease anxiety. So a Michigan State University study conducted in 2017 found that journaling reduced feelings of worries, that it was making it a great outlet for people who have anxiety or even just a tendency to overthink things. And again, it's like sometimes we're carrying all this stuff in our brain, but when we sit down and write about it, then it takes the burden off of our brains and it actually puts it into some kind of clear format that we're able to look at and get some closure about or some understanding about. So just the process of putting it down, taking it out of our minds and onto the paper, onto the computer, can help reduce anxiety. Another benefit of life story writing is gratitude. That once we start looking back at our stories, and particularly those ones that brought us joy, and even those ones that were difficult, we start to feel more appreciation for our life. So the ones that brought us joy, the stories of the times of our life, then certainly that's an easy one to understand in terms of feeling more gratitude. But when we start examining even the difficult times, maybe we'll remember someone who supported us, who helped us through that difficult time. We'll start feeling appreciation for that person being in our life, or we'll start feeling appreciation for our own strengths in being able to get through that difficult time, or appreciation for, the resources that we had in order to get through it, or our own strong will, our own determination, our own smarts. And so we start looking at those times with a new lens, looking back on our life when we have that perspective, when we have that space in between the event and the time now that we're writing about it, can really help us have that new perspective, see things through a new lens, and help us appreciate things so much more. It's also a time for a lot of self-compassion. And once we have that self-compassion, it can also open up to feelings of gratitude. And when we feel self-compassion, we also then can extend that compassion to others. So maybe people that we've had some difficult moments with, we can broaden our perspective a bit as we look at the story from a new lens, perhaps, and recognize looking at it perhaps from their perspective or trying to put ourselves in their shoes. And then we can have a greater appreciation for maybe why things happened the way they did. And most importantly is we can see how things that happened in our life, whether they were challenging or whether or not they were, happy moments, led to us being who we are at this point in time. And so there's an appreciation for the events that we learned from, the lessons that we've learned, and the wisdom that we've earned. We can have an appreciation as we look back in our life. A 2013 study published in the Journal of Affective Disorder was the first ever research to show that expressive writing could be used to decrease symptoms of depression. So the people who were showing signs of depression were in fact able to turn that around as a result of writing down their story. So again, it can lead to greater symptoms of happiness and of gratitude. And then another benefit of life story writing is that it helps future generations find solutions and inspiration through sharing your personal experiences. So just think about this, how valuable your own reflection on the lessons that you've learned can be for someone who you care about, or someone in a future generation within your family tree is able to look at that and say, wow, look how she was able to get through that difficult time. And maybe that can be a source of inspiration for someone who is going through something similar. One of the things I find in my Journey to Legacy program, when we have our small group of women who are sharing stories, how often it is that when one person reads a story, it will touch on something that has affected others. Last week, one of our participants in the program read about her pet that she so valued and cared for, and it brought up all kind of pet appreciation stories for the rest of us. Someone wrote about in the past. Someone wrote about an eating disorder, and that brought up some recognition for the rest of us who had some type of unhealthy relationship with food. So this experience that we share and how we got through those tough times can serve as an inspiration in our writing for others who are reading those stories. And what a beautiful benefit that you get to offer and share your wisdom. We want to make an impact in the world. We want to leave something of value to another generation, or feel that our time here on earth was meaningful. And it's through this life story writing that we are able to find what's been meaningful. It doesn't have to be this huge thing. We don't have to be Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the first, woman on the Supreme Court. We don't have to be someone who is big in this political scene, or Mother Teresa. We can have our own impact in our own ways. And think about how meaningful it would have been to you. And I'm assuming that you didn't already have this from an ancestor of yours, but if you had that, if you had them write about their life, if you'd been able to read about your great-great-grandmother's challenges and how she overcame them, and what she learned as a young girl, and what how she was as a mother, and what was important to her, and what her values were. Think how meaningful that would be to you to have that and feel that connection with someone who came before you. Now, maybe you are one of the lucky ones whose ancestors, a parent, a grandparent, or someone on your family tree from the past took the time to share a bit about themselves. But most of us don't have something like that. And if you can only imagine how wonderful it will be for those in the future to be able to access that information, to have that, and to feel that they know you so much better. So this experience about life story writing can provide so many benefits of feeling good about yourself, of really overcoming elements of depression. It can lead to feeling less anxious. it can lead to greater clarity about who we are as a person. And I know that that's been a huge benefit for me as I really discovered myself more and more through my life story writing, that it allowed me to show up more authentically in my life. It allowed me to recognize that my challenges were not so unique. We have this tendency to carry shame around those experiences from our past that we think we're all alone in. And the reality is that we're not alone at all, that many people have similar challenges. And the minute they were able to start sharing that, at least taking the first step and getting it in writing in some format, whether in a journal or on a computer, in some format where we're writing about our life, that can be so helpful for us to look at and say, wow, that's who I am. And then sharing that and getting that realization and that affirmation from others of, oh, I've been through something similar, and knowing that you're not alone. And then when you share that with others, that they can feel that they're not so alone. So there are just a few of the many benefits. Really, all it takes is for you to make the time to sit down and do it. I offer a framework in my Journey to Legacy program that can make it a lot easier for you. I offer lots of ways of inspiration. I offer a 5-step framework that simplifies the process and helps give you more confidence in writing down your story. So check things out at journeytolegacy.com. I have a free guide there to help you get started. And take advantage of this time in your life where you're still able to remember things, and that you're open to remembering more things, that you want to stimulate your brain and get excited about more, remembering more and recalling more and reminiscing, and then being able to share that. This is a beautiful time for you to be able to do it. And it's something that I hope that you'll make a priority in your life. Thank you for joining today. I look forward to having you here next week on the Journey to Legacy show. Bye.